Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our weekly OCI deep dive. For those of you who might be new to our events, we're hosted on Cloud Customer Connect, which is our Oracle community forum for end users. You'll see some links throughout the presentation today that I'll share that lead you back to those CCC forums. And if you're not already a part of that community, we invite you to create a free account, join in discussions, and look for upcoming events on all kinds of topics. My name is Kenna Ketrick. I'm a program manager with the OCI go-to-market team. And today we're joined by Kumar Varun, Senior Product Manager, and Stephen Len, Senior Principal Product Manager, for a deep dive into Enterprise Manager and Logging Analytics. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Stephen and Kumar. Take it away, folks.
Thank you, Kenna. Good day, everyone. I'm Steve Lemmy, Senior Principal Product Manager on the Observability and Management team. And thank you for joining us today. During the call, please ask your questions and participate in the 5 polls, as this really helps our speakers to cover what's most applicable to you in today's session. It also helps us schedule the future sessions that are relevant to what you need for your job role. Welcome to the kickoff of our new series. And today's session is on improving troubleshooting with Oracle Enterprise Manager data and OCI Logging Analytics. And in this session, our expert speaker will share with you the most common observability and management business challenges we've heard from our customers. And today, please share yours. A quick update on logging analytics and its machine learning capabilities, how Enterprise Manager plays a role in our O&M strategy, new integration you can use to expand upon what you do with Enterprise Manager today, and at the end, a demonstration showing how you can get deeper troubleshooting and root cause analysis using new capabilities recently made available. So please join me in welcoming our speaker today and their supporting team members, Kumar Varun, Senior Product Manager.
Thank you, Steve. And thanks everyone for joining us today for this exciting session. While it's no surprise that customers' IT environments have been evolving rapidly, they're getting complex by the day. The existing monitoring and management tools and methods have not kept up with this increasing complexity, with multi-cloud and on-premises environment. In fact, Gartner estimates that more than a third of organizations use 30 or more monitoring tools. Organizations have experienced a rise in complexity, and cost of managing these infrastructure and growing number of emerging technologies such as Kubernetes, containers, complex enterprise applications is growing more and more complex. There are growing challenges on observability and management side. Support for multiple stacks, lack of support in fact. No easy way to expose applications across multiple digital channels, mobile, web, chatbots. There are too many tools. There is a deluge of observability and management tools that is out there. Apps, identities, threat and challenge change constantly. There's too much data, telemetry data coming from variety of sources in huge volumes is too massive for humans to parse through. Building and monitoring, the automation around monitoring tools, the management of tools themselves, that is an uphill task in itself. Analysis is manual, fragmented, and specialized. And that's where observability and management platform and its services from Oracle come in.
Hey, Kumar, why don't we go ahead and push out the 3rd poll and see what challenges our customers on today's call are facing?
Sounds like a good idea.
So far, Kumar, it looks like a lot of folks are working with the Oracle stack.
That's awesome. All right, so I'll not spend a lot of time on this slide. At the very core, what we have is telemetry coming in from compute, storage, network, and other services. And we have a foundational set of services, logging, monitoring, alarms, notification, functions, etc. And then we have advanced O&M services, the premium set of services, logging analytics, about which I'll be talking about in detail later, database management, APM, and capacity planning SQL Insight. So all these set of services provide a comprehensive view to users, to different types of personas to troubleshoot and find root causes for the issues and make sure the performance of their applications and they can provide the best customer experiences for their end users. Now, drilling deeper into logging analytics When it's time for advanced analysis, you want to escalate to logging analytics service, which provides machine learning powered insights against massive volumes of logs telemetry without the need for any data scientist involvement. Logging analytics makes it easy to unlock the value of your log data. We want to make sure that every user, all the users, irrespective of whether they have access to that specific data from the machines or not, they are able to start analyzing and troubleshooting problems with logging analytics. We are providing an intuitive analytics and log exploration and visualization capability, which you can use for multidimensional topology-based exploration. Simple machine learning based analysis, which is based upon our patented technology. That is, we don't want to expose the machine learning jargon to the end users. And it is supported by rich knowledge content, more than 250 parsers, which are enriched, which help enrich the log data coming in terms of error categorization, problem labels, so that it's extremely easy to find out the needle in a haystack. And it's supported by dashboards, sophisticated dashboards, and alerts for monitoring, where you can create custom dashboards for logs, metrics, and an interactive. So on the right-hand side, what you see is there is a wide variety of support for different types of technology. The applications and infrastructure can be on-prem, on third-party cloud. And finally, there are multiple methods for analysis and ingestion. We want the ingestion and analysis, the overall process, just to be a two-step process. The first step is ingestion, which is one-click ingestion, as I'll drill deeper into architecture on the next slide. But if you are, say, ingesting data from a database, ingesting logs from a database, we have this knowledge built in on where those log files are, or if you are reading the specific tables, what type of logs to collect from the OS, audit logs, and engineered system also. So step one, easy ingest, all the source information, all the ingestion information is all baked in. And second step is to visualize, monitor, and troubleshoot for faster insight. And there are multiple methods which are available. First one is for ad hoc analysis, that is Log Explorer for troubleshooting. Second are the dashboards to continuously monitor and expose those insights to different type of users. And finally, you don't want to repeat yourself. Once an issue has occurred, you don't want to come back to it, and you should be create alerts and notifications on top of that. So making the analysis repeatable.
Hey, Kumar, before you move on, why don't we go ahead and see what current logging methods our audience members are using? And then you'll be able to maybe better contrast in your presentation, some of the differences and some of the features or benefits that logging analytics can help them with.
Sure.
So at the moment, we've got the next poll up. So if you take just a few moments and let us know how you're dealing with logs today, we'll make this a short poll. We've got a couple of questions here for you so we can help zero in our presentation today for your specific needs. And it looks like, Kumar, we've got people who are doing a variety of these types of things to get data from their logs. Not surprising. We see that often with the customers that we speak with, that folks are using. So a lot of great information there. Thank you, everyone, for sharing that. Go ahead and continue on, Kumar.
Thanks, Steve. All right. As Steve said, it's no surprise. We keep hearing that the complexity is increasing and there are a lot of solutions. When the time comes for observability, for monitoring, it's the agility and the speed of implementing that solution, and that leads to all sort of innovative solutions. Whatever is the need for the hour at that time. So here, as I spoke about, we provide one touch or very low touch ingestion methodology for different types of sources. What you can see here is whether you have deployed your applications on OCI, you're using a third-party cloud or on-premises environment or a cloud service. There are multiple ways for ingesting logs from files, from services, from SQL databases, from database tables. And the primary method that we recommend here is the management agent. Then you have object storage. You can use functions for ingesting and pushing data from pulling and pushing data from cloud SaaS services. There are streaming services, which a lot of our customers are using to get the data into Service Connector. For all OCI services, the data comes through the logging and the Service Connector. If you're using integration cloud, Oracle integration, then that data can also directly flow into logging analytics. And then finally, you can create notifications and alert on top of that. The core point of this is that we have an out of box understanding of log location and the type of data to be collected, and also enrich them into specific error categories and other enrichments that will help you analyze. Now, going into what type of analytical capabilities for visualization and monitoring that we're providing, I'll go into the demo for showing you all of this, but we provide a bunch of out-of-the-box dashboards and save searches, which help you kickstart and jumpstart the analysis on the very first day. It's backed by a very powerful query language for statistical and time series analysis. And we provide BI tools like interface for exploratory and targeted analysis. On the right-hand side, what you see is an example of a machine learning-driven log clustering, where you have billions of log records that can be easily clustered with just a click of a button into different types of potential problems, outliers, and trends. And we continuously improve and add new features. Some of the recent features that we have introduced are customizable homepage. As you can see, a new geolocation enrichment. This is automatically done for most of the sources we have enabled, and you can visualize your data both in time and space. And the most important is the topology view of your application and infrastructure, which is extremely important today because of the complexity, the deep hierarchies of different applications and infrastructure that we have. And this topology, this relationship is very well understood by Enterprise Manager. So I'll talk about Enterprise Manager. Enterprise Manager is our flagship management product for Oracle Stack. There are tens of thousands of customers that rely on EM every day for their business and mission critical applications. It has several key pillars. First is the hyperscale observability and management. A single EM deployment can scale up to monitoring millions of targets. Then we have integrated full stack management. EM provides in-depth management of the entire Oracle stack, covering OS, virtual infrastructure, database, mid-tier, and applications. And this allows for comprehensive application to disk monitoring, management, and diagnostics, whether a customer is running homegrown application or packaged one like e-business suite, Siebel, PeopleSoft, etc. And EM is the leader in data management, that it's a de facto industry standard and leader in database performance management. Database performance management capabilities encompass decades of expertise and best practices baked into the product. Now, Enterprise Manager users can leverage the logging analytics and operational insight services on OCI with this new OCI bridge that we have recently introduced. Now, it will provide the ability to analyze the log generated by different systems easily, and that is critical for ensuring smooth business operations. EM collects detailed information from managed targets, such as configuration that is required to locate log files and hierarchical relationship between entities to enable topology views of applications and infrastructure components. Logging Analytics EM integration automatically builds the topology view across the application stack to help app, IT, and database admins to troubleshoot availability and performance issues very quickly. Here, what you see, you may have an infrastructure applications, irrespective of whether they are on-prem or in a third-party cloud, and the OCI bridge, here the center point is an object storage bucket, which is used to share data across different services and Enterprise Manager. And on the right-hand side, we have logging analytics and other services, which we continue to add to this list. Now let's see logging analytics in action. And finally, what we want to do is we want to replicate, we want to see a WebLogic cluster environment and a database that is managed by an Enterprise Manager 13.5 RU3. And we want to export all that data, all that hierarchical relationship into logging analytics and use those to analyze logs. And we got a number of requests to start from the basics of logging analytics, which I will do now. Steve, can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right. So once you log into OCI console, logging analytics can be found in observability and management, and logging analytics, there are multiple pages. So typically you start with one of the dashboards. And here I have a bunch of dashboards, and these are other dashboards which are delivered out of the box from Oracle. I will start with a middleware and database operations dashboard and look at the last 24 hours. I can change the time range, and it shows the middleware log trends. What are the different error codes? What are the different targets and errors that are reported, middleware target with error that are reported? What are the top web server access pages and the activity trend on the databases? I can quickly change the time range and compare it with a previous time range. There are also custom time ranges which can be set up by users. Now, other dashboard, as an example, would be one of the Siebel summary dashboards that I have. And sure, it goes into more details of different components for Siebel, that how many components are there, what are the different exceptions that are being reported, what is the activity distribution, and the different error levels, database entity with different types of logs, and details about Siebel deployment, and also some machine learning based and advanced analysis capabilities where you want to debug and associate the log error types with different with component correlation. From here, so typically you will start with a simple dashboard or a very targeted dashboard, but the next question comes is, how do I explore and analyze in an ad hoc way? These dashboards are interactive. All the widgets are interactive. You can drill down from here directly into Log Explorer, clicking on that, and it takes you where you can do interactive analysis. Now, I'll take a minute to to tell about what this interface looks like. So on the left-hand side, as I mentioned, this is a typical BI tool-like interface that we have. On the left-hand side, you see all the fields. We have a visualization panel where you can select and switch between different visualization, including the machine learning capabilities. And this is the main panel. The query language or the query is in the query bar where you can specify and add sophisticated queries. There is also a help available for different type of queries, which you can get started with, and also construct your own queries with as needed. Now, the next question that comes to mind when you're doing an ad hoc analysis, when you're troubleshooting and doing proactive analysis, is what type of data is there? I will go ahead and start a new analysis session. And what we see here is there is huge amount of data that is collecting in this tenancy in the last 60 minutes. If I increase the time range for, let's say, 24 hours, I'm looking at multiple different types of logs. And there are logs coming from Kubernetes, there are logs coming from Siebel, there are OCI audit services, the management agent, Linux host logs. So next question that comes to my mind is, what are the different types of these targets in the parlance of EM that are coming in? And the corresponding concept of targets here in logging analytics is the entity and the entity type. When I look at the entity type, what we see here is there are lots of VC and flow logs that are coming in, host logs are coming in, and these are the entity types there can be multiple entities of these, but these are the entity types which I'm collecting log from. And as I mentioned, the logs are getting collected by multiple different methods. Some are coming through functions, others are coming through management agent or service connector hub. Now I can quickly look at a specific the trend for these logs here on what is happening. If there has been a spike, we see that VC and flow logs, there was a spike. somewhere here, and I can go ahead and select from here and go into just looking at the VC and flow log records only. Now, what I want to see next is what has been the trend of these logs. Going into that, it shows a time-wise trend that the most of the logs which are coming in, there has been low activity. It was they're just starting the day, but yesterday there was some spike happening at that time, and these are distributed across different log sources. Now, talking about log sources, you can go ahead and click on this log source field, and it shows you what has been the trend of a specific log source. So previously, we were looking at the entity types or entities. Now we are looking at this data from the log source point of view, that what are the different schema logs or the application logs that I'm seeing right now. The next thing that you want to do is in terms of problems. So we are enriching the logs with specific problem priority and problem severity. And when you look at the labels, so these are the action failed or HTTP error or login failed. These are the labels attached to specific log messages that we are ingesting and enriching with the information that we have for Oracle applications and other third-party applications. This is where you want to start with. And one thing to note about the labels is that they are not specific to a source. Action failed is spread across multiple different sources and multiple different entities. So when you come in, it's not that the issue could be coming from anywhere in the stack. And a good point to start is to look at a problem label and go from there. There is, as you can see, a problem priority. And you can also start from the problem priority based upon low, medium, or high. And also there is a severity tag also attached. Now, all these can be customized and defined by end users on their own. So the underlying point here is that no problem is ever the same. Troubleshooting is an expert and more of an art these days. And experts like yourselves have the experience and intuition to tell where exactly to start. And logging analytics offers the tools and techniques needed to help you troubleshoot more efficiently. Now, at this point, once we have filtered down for when we have looked at the different type of sources, the volume of the logs is typically so high that cancel this. So the volume of the of the logs is so high that it's typically not easy to pinpoint where it's a very proverbial needle in a haystack kind of a problem. Now, what I'm looking at is around 11 million log records in last 24 hours. And this is just a demo environment. In our customer typical environments, there are billions of log records in an hour only. There are customers who are sending in more than 5 TB, 10 TB of data per day. So how do what the next question that comes in is there a way I can narrow down and group these all the type of logs into some similar type of categories? So what I will do is simply apply the cluster ML algorithm on top of it. And what it returns is out of those 10 million records, it was able to cluster them into 500 clusters. Now, I'm not interested in looking at all type of entities. So what I will do is limit it to the specific entity types. But let's say I want to just look at the Oracle database, HTTP server, and go from there. And out of all the errors, what it has done, out of all the log records, it has categorized them into 144 clusters. Now, this is a busy screen, but a lot of valuable information is showing on this screen. Now, what you see here is that there were around 250 log records, which were 250 log records which had the same shape, and they are categorized into one cluster. Now, there are potential issues based upon the severity or severity of the log messages, And there are 29 outliers, and outliers are the events or the logs records which identify problems which have occurred only once. And finally, what you want to know is across different entities, across different log sources, we identify that pattern in the pattern and the trend of that specific log happening, and identify the same shape of that log record, same shape of that log record with other log records. So you can simply define to look at, hey, all these different, we can see two types of logs and they're happening at the same time. Now, the next thing that you would like to do is figuring out whether this is a typical scenario or not. So can I compare it with something in the past or a good machine behavior that I know of already? And that's where the cluster compare comes in, where you can identify, you can pick up one of the clusters that is produced by logging analytics from all your logs, and simply compare it with a baseline or a baseline query or a baseline time range. And again comes the question of complexity. We're still looking at a lot of log records here. And what is important at this point in terms of how do I find out what are the relationships between these different types of entities? I'll repeat at the risk of repeating myself. I'll say complexity of enterprise application is growing each day, and understanding these relationships is critical. And that's where the new topology visualization come in. So let me go into scope filter and show different topology. Now, what I'm showing here is a topology of a Kubernetes-based application, and where with different services, databases, and computer distributed and shown in a relationship way. And this view can be used to filter down data. We have where we started from our dashboard. I will select the WebLogic cluster, and this is the topology that is automatically extracted from Enterprise Manager. Now, what I can do is I can create cluster again for all these records and look at a specific entity, let's say database, and it shows records and clustering information about database only. Now, this is extremely valuable when you are analyzing and identifying problems across a complex topology or a complex application stack. This is for demo purposes, this is a very simple one, but you probably are aware that for complex applications like Enterprise e-business suite, for Siebel, and for engineered system, these nodes, these targets consist of hundreds of different entities tightly interconnected with each other in across different tiers. Now, this is a good point to move on to the Enterprise Manager topic. How do we get this information about topology and logs directly into logging analytics so that we can leverage that? So I will show the WebLogic cluster and that WebLogic environment that we want to start extracting and pulling logs from the different entities for that environment. So here I have my Enterprise Manager, and it's set up. So I'll start with going to dashboards and look at the group information. I have created a group called EMLA group and look at its components. So as I mentioned before, the center point of the OCI bridge, which is used to collect entity and target information from Enterprise Manager, is an object storage bucket. So I have created an object storage bucket on logging and on logging analytics on OCI side, and there are essentially 3 steps which are needed for creating and configuring the OCI bridge. First step is to configure Enterprise Manager to send target information of a group, this group, EMLA underscore group, to the bucket. Logging Analytics will pick up the information which is periodically sent to that bucket directly from that from the bucket, and it will automatically create entities and the relationships corresponding to what is in the group. And finally, for starting log collection, you install management agent on all the servers and select the required sources to start log collections. So here we see 19 WebLogic servers, 8 databases, and 6 hosts that are part of this group. And going back in the setup and export EM data to OCI, what you see here is I have already configured this group that, hey, send logging analytics, this group, this EM information, and all these targets that are part of this group will be sent. The steps for configuring the OCI bridge are, I'm taking operational insights as an example here. So first step that you do is select the OCI service from the enabled data export on the export EM data to OCI services page. Select the source, which is essentially a group. You can select this group. I selected a target group and provide this information on, hey, what credential should I use? What is the base URL for the bucket and the bucket name? And then you can test it. So for this bridge, for example, it has been running for a while, and you can run the live test, and it shows, hey, what is the connectivity? So how do you set up the credentials for that? If credentials for EM to connect to OCI, from the setup menu, go to security, and in the name credentials, here there is a name credential called Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and from the previous screen, you see there was this NC_OCI_JP, that credential I'm using. And this is based upon the API key that is generated from OCI. Quickly, I will go there. If you go to your users page on OCI, the API keys can be generated from here. And once this is set up, if you are already using Enterprise Manager, then you probably have the preferred credentials for the host already set up, which is used for running the discovery jobs by EM. The next step that we have, so once this is set up, you go back to EM data for OCI services and configure the EM bridge. So credentials, object storage bucket, and defining the group. Now, what we want to see is how, go back to Log Explorer. So the next step is EM will start sending the data to that object storage bucket on OCI side. And the next step is to configure the EM bridge part of logging analytics. So going into the administration and the EM bridge page, here you can create a bridge. What we will use the same object storage bucket. You can give any arbitrary name, give a description, and select where you created the bucket. Here, this is the bucket that I created, the same bucket that I'm using on the Enterprise Manager side. And there are a set of policies which are needed for running this regular job to start collecting data from the object storage bucket. Looking at the detail of my existing EM bridge, here I've already configured it, and all the policies are set. And you can see the last import status was successful, and it regularly imports data from the object storage. If you can go to the object storage and look at the raw data that is sent by Enterprise Manager. Now, once the data starts coming in, you will see the entities getting created. So let's look at. So these are the Oracle HTTP server, WebLogic domain, and the WebLogic server entities, and also the database instance which are there. Now, the next step is I install the management agent, and that process is extremely simple also. Go to the administration overview homepage and clicking on add data. This is a new feature we have introduced recently, and it provides a step-by-step method for configuring agent, including creating the keys and the command that you need to use. There is also an automated Ansible script. So I use the Ansible script to install agents on all my hosts. You can that is available. There is a video on YouTube that you can go through using the Ansible script for installing and managing the management agent. Now from here, you do a custom selection in this case, and agent has discovered and created the corresponding host entities and gathered that information from EM also. So here what you see is the WebLogic servers, and this has a corresponding management agent associated with it. And what I will do is I will select for this case, I'll select a WebLogic server, and let me select just the WebLogic server for now. And it shows as in the next step that, hey, for this WebLogic server, what kind of logs do you want to collect? I'll select access logs and the server logs. And then finally, what is the log group? Log group is the RBAC level entity on logging analytics sites where you work on deciding what you want to give access to whom. And you select logging analytics in my compartment and ERP logs. And when you go to the next step, it just configures the WebLogic server to start collecting logs, server access logs, and the server logs directly from those specific hosts for these entities. Now, if you're not using Enterprise Manager, that is also fine. We have the discovery capability for complex applications for different types of hosts, etc., coming available in the agent also that you can directly use. Once that start coming in, you will see, and I should mention another point here, that showing the topology is that can be shown irrespective of whether you're collecting the logs or not. The topology where you want to start exploring what type of when you're deciding what type of logs you want to collect, that is directly available as soon as the data is imported from Enterprise Manager. So I have installed the agent, my EM bridge is working, and I'll go again back into my topology view and select for this topology, and the entity information is regularly updated. And finally, what we want to do is create dashboards which can be easily edited. And we provide a bunch of dashboard, as I mentioned, out of the box. Here, we go to the middleware and operations dashboards again, and we'll start looking at specific data. And as I mentioned, discovery is also available in the management agent. So this is what we did. Let us to recap. We had a WebLogic server and Oracle database running on OCI, and we installed that was managed by Enterprise Manager, and we configured Enterprise Manager to start sending the group information to an object storage bucket that was created, which was pulled in by Logging Analytics for create the same topology and entity information on Logging Analytics sites. And that information also include other properties in terms of variables that are defined in these targets. And we installed the management agent, and finally we got to the topology view and the logs coming in from these targets. So if you're using Enterprise Manager to manage databases, engineer system, or complex applications such as eBusiness Suite, Siebel, Logging Analytics can give you deeper visibility into your environment and help you troubleshoot and monitor issues more efficiently. Getting started with Logging Analytics is extremely easy, and the first GB is always free. We'll share a list of resources. Here are the list of resources, and we'll share that later on. And please feel free to contact us through our forums or Oracle support. And I know for a 45-minute presentation, this is a lot of information to be crammed in that time. And I'm sure There are lots of questions that you have. And before we move on to the Q&A, we have another exciting session coming up on Kubernetes. So if you're using Kubernetes or OKE, join us for a deep dive session on Kubernetes monitoring solution with logging analytics on March 10th. Here are the registration links provided here. Thank you so much for listening. Steve, over to you.
Yes, now is your time for questions. So be sure and use that Q&A tab for the remainder of today's session. Before we all go into more of the questions, let's go ahead and push out that last poll, please. And please, based upon your participation today, let us know if the information has been insightful, if it's actionable, and how we can continue to improve sessions like these. So we've opened the poll, so please go ahead and participate, and we'll leave that open during our questions. Now, Kumar, a number of questions have come in, and the panel has done a wonderful job answering them. And you were just touching upon something I think many, based upon our polls, yielded. They currently use Enterprise Manager, but maybe they've never used the Oracle Cloud at all. How easy, simple? What's the next step if I use Enterprise Manager? I haven't used, Oracle Cloud, and I want to go check this out. What should they do?
Super simple. Go to cloud.oracle.com, and there is a 30-day free trial that is available, which gives free credit that you can use for more and more services, a lot of services. And that is typically all the infrastructure databases, and there are always free services also available. Then for getting started with logging analytics, there is the onboarding process for logging analytics is extremely simple. It's a one-click process. Next is go to the marketplace on your tenancy, and there is a marketplace stack and image available for Enterprise Manager. Install that and start going through the flow. And we have all these resources available. There are multiple blogs which talk about, there's a blog series on using EM with OCI. Well, the first one talks about how to get the data from EM to OCI. Second is using operational insight, to use that data. And the third one is what I was just talking about, using logging analytics for you to use that data. So few steps, all documented very well. There are a bunch of videos available. Super easy to get started.
Okay. Another common thing that came up in our polls today is there's a number of folks that write their own scripts to get data from logs. So if you were to contrast or make a suggestion for them, why possibly look at this service versus what they're doing today, writing their own scripts?
Well, writing your own scripts is, yes, as I said, when a time comes for troubleshooting and when something is down or performance is degraded, that's what you do. I have done that many times. But what happens is the number of such scripts grow, and that is not easy to manage. The scripts becomes error prone. So what you want to do is apply the techniques that we have in terms of ingestion, for using functions or using the management agent to start collecting on a repeatable and scalable way. That way, it's managed, it's version managed, it's also easy to scale, and the load of managing and running those scripts is handled by the OCI services, and which can scale up very well. So it's a great start, and we provide different types of functions, with different types of capabilities that you can run for a specific source. That logging analytics can be used in a very scalable and agile way for these use cases.
Okay, and we also had a few who responded to the polls. They have a commercial, log tool. So we always get those questions, comparatively, can you differentiate logging analytics from, other commercially available log tools?
Absolutely. So the first thing that comes up when I compare logging analytics with other tools is the interface, the dashboards and the log explorer interface. We know from our customers, and we realize that troubleshooting and root cause analysis is not the primary thing that our users do. They are there to ensure that their customer experience is to the best. running the applications, developing and expanding those applications. And troubleshooting comes in when those applications go down or there are performance degradations. We don't want to make it extremely complex to use the tool. And that's where logging analytics shines. Any user can come in. Their first problem that I mentioned is what is the data that is there, on how it is parsed, what are the different fields available. That is available right to you on the screen. Then the visualization and the machine learning capabilities, which help you parse through the deluge of data that is coming in, are one touch. You can enable and invoke those machine learning capabilities just by a click of button without exposing any sort of jargon, machine learning jargon, and Turing techniques. And finally, you can manage your data, the data lifecycle also. We don't. I think I should mention the price point also. It's the pricing for logging analytics is based upon how much you have in active storage. And what we have seen typically, customers will save data for 90 days in active storage, and then archive it in the archival for 3 to 5 years. And that archival, what I say is an active. It's very agile archival where you can pull in and recall data from the archive in a matter of minutes. So that data is readily available to you, unlike other tools which say, hey, we'll take around another 48 hours to get your data from archive. And the archive is priced at a 1/20th of the price than active storage. So few points, and I can speak on and on about this, Steve.
Well, one thing that you showed that generated some extra questions was, the topology map. And also we had input that folks were wanting more visibility into their Oracle application stack. So the parsers, and I know you showed them very quickly, come configured out of the box for many of the Oracle technologies and applications, right?
Absolutely. So we have more than 250 parsers, and for most of the Oracle stack, we have those parsers built in. And parsers are just the first thing that you want to solve when looking at logs. It's the enrichment. When you're looking at Ora codes, when you're looking at specific problems that is identified in the logs, that's what we do. We have already identified snippets of logs that if something comes in, categorize that as a critical error with high priority. If something like this comes in, then label it as authentication or authorization error. So yes, we have a wide variety of parsers and sources and enrichment available right out of the box. And we continue to improve that regularly.
Well, the staff behind the scenes is doing a great job on the questions that have been coming in. And again, thank you everyone for putting those in and continue. We've got a few moments remaining. One of the other things the polls yielded, Kumar, was we actually have some folks who are not familiar, with Enterprise Manager, which, pretty much every Oracle database customer has access to use Enterprise Manager, and it has functionality at no charge to even use. And some still aren't aware of that. But if someone hasn't really, put EM in their environment, how might they get best started? What would you recommend for them to start doing this type of troubleshooting?
I would say I started in a very similar way. And I would say start from OCI, start from going to the marketplace and install that. There are a bunch of images readily available for starting to use Enterprise Manager. There are a few live labs that we will add to the resources for this, for starting with Enterprise Manager. And the 3 blogs that give a very good flow on how to set it up with OCI.
Okay, well, you're a wealth of information, Kumar, and again, thank you for sharing all this wonderful information. I think at this point, we've got most of the questions answered, so I'll move us into our session close. Again, thank you, Kumar, and our question and answer team behind the scenes, and to your audience for attending today's session, Improving Troubleshooting with Oracle Enterprise Manager Data and OCI Logging Analytics. And
thanks, Steve, and thanks everyone for joining us today and hearing about this exciting technology.
And watch for future OCI community topics and sign up for the other sessions scheduled in this series. That'll conclude today's session. Have a wonderful day.